The U.S. Department of Justice has indicted 2 Russians for allegedly funding an American influencer network to make content with hidden Russian government messaging.
Yeah, so Tenet Media, which posted thousands of videos from pretty well-known pro-Trump influencers like Dave Rubin, Benny Johnson, and Tim Pool, have allegedly been funded by RT, formerly known as Russia Today, which is a Russian state-run media network.
Literally directed by the government of Russia. And the goal of the operation, according to prosecutors, was to fuel pro-Russian narratives by pushing content favorable to Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump.
The Justice Department's message is clear. We have no tolerance for attempts by authoritarian regimes to exploit our democratic system of government.
Videos on Tenet Media's channels were viewed 16 million times, with hundreds of thousands of followers across Facebook, X, TikTok, and Instagram.
It's safe to say that these followers didn't know that they were watching Kremlin-approved talking points. The indictment says that the content of the videos are consistent with Russia's interest in amplifying divisions to weaken U.S. opposition to core Russian interests. So check out the Tenet trailer.
I think I've pissed off basically everybody. That's what happens when you're a free thinker.
The media says dissident or anti-establishment. I mean, when I hear it, I think base, very cool.
Free speech is under attack. I worked for several massive corporate news organizations. What did I learn? They lie.
The challenge for all of us is to not be passive participants in letting the country slip away.
So the influencers hired by Tenet say they had no idea their paychecks were coming from Russia, and they call themselves victims. And in keeping with that, they have not been indicted.
So this all started in 2022 when Canadian YouTuber and political commentator Lauren Chen was approached by RT to launch a media network. And we still don't know if Lauren Chen knew that RT was the one who approached her or if they masked their identity pretty well. The indictment says that Chen and RT have had a long working relationship, which is weird since it's a Russian state-run media network. But regardless, Chen launches Tenet from Tennessee, where she now lives. And her first mission from RT was to influencer scout for the perfect face of the channel.
Chen, who went by the username The Roaming Millennial, was well known in conservative influencer circles.
She's in the talk space on the right side. And she was this, young, cute little girl who was doing some online stuff.
That was Dave Rubin, a conservative talk show host whose show The Rubin Report has been viewed over 1 billion times. He was one of the first influencers Lauren Chen approached to be talent at Tenet Media. But for some reason, Rubin was skeptical and began to ask questions.
And this is when things take a bit of a weird turn. So to hide RT's own involvement, the Russians created a fictional person named Edward Grigorian, which they hid behind. And they said that he was a Belgian investor and basically the financial backer of this whole project.
What a man, this Edward Grigorian.
He's very impressive for being a fake man.
He is.
So the influencers all found out about him, and Rubin, for example, Googled him and obviously found nothing. And he asked Chen for a LinkedIn or press links or just kind of anything to prove that this guy was real. And he was finally sent a very weird CV.
It literally looks like it was made by AI or something. It has a stock photo of a man gazing out the window of a private plane, and it lists his interests as poverty alleviation, championing free speech, and advocating for social justice causes.
Amazing. Rubin also allegedly received a couple links. One was to a very bare bones LinkedIn page and a WordPress page that was basically empty except for one basic sentence written in French and the name of the company misspelled.
And allegedly Grigorian's name was commonly misspelled in his own emails.
That explains why Rubin was clearly not completely convinced of who Edward Grigorian was, because he asked to Zoom with him. And this is a funny part that we found in the indictment. So this Zoom between Rubin and Grigorian was set for 5 p.m. Paris time, where Edward was based. But Edward Grigorian, whoever was him, logged on to the meeting at 5 p.m. Moscow time and was on the chat being where is everyone? I'm on, it's 5 p.m. Which is funny because we obviously now know that he was Russian and clearly not very good at keeping up with his ruse.
I don't know who I spoke to. I actually have no idea who I spoke to.
And according to the indictment, digital forensic evidence actually proves that Edward Grigorian was made up of 3 Russian personas.
Shocker! But they allegedly managed to convince Rubin enough to negotiate a contract. In an interview with Megyn Kelly, Rubin said he just threw out a number that no one in their right mind would agree to: $5 million a year.
Which is $100,000 per episode for 4 episodes a week, all, by the way, owned and posted by Tenet Media channel.
And to Rubin's surprise, Grigorian agreed to the ludicrous sum of money.
So after scouring for more influencers and negotiating crazy contracts, Tenet was finally ready to launch in November 2023 with 6 commentators, all who were really prominent figures and had millions of followers on their own platforms.
And Tenet started to grow. At their peak, they garnered 16 million views, even catching the attention of Elon Musk, who boosted their content 60 times. Their videos were controversial, to say the least, often focusing on immigration, inflation, gender, and domestic and foreign policy.
It all starts with a federal government that's become more of a border taxi service than border enforcement.
There certainly won't be hotels anywhere. There'll be crime everywhere. You'll all be poor. And this is all coming to a city near you.
The issue for the United States is not that women have the right to vote, but that women gained the right to vote without equal civic responsibility.
The American public was cheap-faked by all the propaganda insisting that Joe Biden is mentally fit. Is clearly a cheap fake puppet.
It's almost like you're all just performative freaks that want attention but have no idea how to actually protect this planet.
5 out of the 6 Tenet creators claimed they had full editorial control of every video they posted. The only creator that hasn't explicitly said that is Benny Johnson. So Tim Pool said, "Never at any point did anyone other than I have full editorial control of the show." And Taylor Hanson said, "I was never directed to report on any topic, had complete freedom and control over my reporting at all times."
Which is interesting because the indictment says that the 2 RT employees had complete and total control over coverage since the get-go. And to take a step back and just give some context on RT, it's a Russian media channel with millions of followers, and its goal, according to its editor-in-chief, is to create an entire empire of covert projects designed to shape public opinion in Western audiences.
Yeah, it's one of the Russian networks that spread fake news and propaganda before the 2016 election. The FBI has literally said they made fake accounts pretending to be Americans on Facebook and Twitter to spread anti-immigration and anti-Muslim content designed to help Donald Trump and hurt Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, it had an insane global reach, but after Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, it was forced to cease operations in the UK, Canada, the US, and the European Union.
And following the State Department's announcement of this Tenet indictment, Meta and TikTok have also banned RT.
Well, that makes sense since the DOJ alleges that RT basically directed all of the coverage that was being pushed out. A pretty scary example of this is the way that Tenet rolled out videos during the Moscow music venue attack in March 2024.
Which was a horrific terrorist attack that killed 145 people through shooting, slashing, and using incendiary devices to start fires.
An RT editor reportedly pushed for creators to post graphic footage of the attack where you could actually see people getting shot. And even though ISIS claimed responsibility for the attack and all these international governments decided that it was ISIS, the same RT employee was asking for one of the creators to make a video blaming the US or Ukraine for the attack. And according to the indictment, commentator 3 said that he would be happy to cover it.
Ugh, it's so dark. And no one knows who this commentator 3 is because they don't identify the influencers by name in the indictment. But Dave Rubin and Matt Christensen have identified themselves as commentator 1 and commentator 6. Inside sources have said Tim Pool is commentator 2, and Lauren Southern was easy to identify as commentator 4 because she's the only woman. So allegedly, commentator 3 has to be either Benny Johnson or Taylor Hanson.
Going back to the timeline, it's 2024, and the scheme basically continues for months. And along this time, the Russians start getting frustrated that the creators weren't posting enough, especially on their socials. So by June 2024, the RT employees just start bypassing the creators and start posting on Tenet directly. And by September, which was just last month, the indictment is unsealed.
Since then, YouTube has banned their channel and taken down all the Tenet videos. And in the last couple of weeks since we were working on this story, the Tenet website doesn't exist anymore. Each of the 6 Tenet influencers have released statements declaring their innocence and saying they had no idea about the Russian involvement. And it's just hard to know what to believe. People, of course, online are criticizing them, saying that they knew the whole time and they were in on it. Their fans believe, what they're saying, that they were in the dark. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle, like a willful ignorance going on, allegedly.
Yeah, I mean, this clearly wasn't the most advanced scheme on the Russians' part. So it makes you wonder if and when people started to really catch on, which brings us to Lauren Chen and her husband, Liam Donovan, who are noted as the founders of Tenet in the indictment and are the only people who haven't released a statement. And it's hard to believe that they didn't know what was going on, because between June 2023 and August 2024, so for this year, they invoiced foreign shell companies for roughly $10 million. And it's just so obvious that these companies are fake. I mean, a lot of them have identical building addresses, even though they're in different parts of the world. A lot of them don't even have websites, and there was one wire transfer listed in the indictment for $318,000 that was labeled as payment for an iPhone 15. So okay.
Plus, the indictment claims that Chen and her husband referred to the RT employees that hired them as the Russians in their private messages. And at one point, when the company's founder, Edward Gregorian, I guess, didn't reply to a message for money, one of the founders Googled time in Moscow.
But the only two people that are indicted in all of this are the two RT employees under 2 counts. So one is for money laundering and one is for conspiring against the US and failing to disclose information that led to a violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. So NBC actually reached out to RT for comment over Telegram, which is this like encrypted messaging app, and got some pretty interesting responses like, "We gotta earn our Kremlin paychecks somehow." 2016 called and it wants its cliches back. And my favorite was just a maniacal ha 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 with an exclamation mark.
But all of that makes us wonder if Lauren Chen and her husband will have charges coming, since based on what the indictment alleges, they're the ones that actually violated the Foreign Agents Registration Act, because they're the ones living on US soil acting as foreign agents.
Right. And it's been fascinating to just go through the content of what was posted and what the priorities of this project were. Wired actually did this really cool thing where they downloaded 400 transcripts of Tenet videos before they were taken off of YouTube. And you can search in this search engine for a word and see how many times it was said. So Wren, give me a word.
Russia.
Okay, 80 times.
Okay, it's not too much. Trump.
Okay. 964.
Oh, okay, so
That's a lot.
they love Trump. How about like fake news?
194.
Okay.
I do this all day.
Okay, one more. War.
310.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I mean, we would have loved to talk to any of the Tenet influencers just to hear their side of the story. And we reached out to them, but did not hear back.
Yeah, I mean, this is just such a crazy story because it's at the nexus of so many things that we as a society talk about and are worried about. Like, foreign intervention isn't some far-off conspiracy theory. It's real and happening, or the dangerous influence of social media, or even the US election that's coming up.
Yeah, which is less than 3 weeks away. And according to US intelligence, this will be the 3rd presidential election in a row that Russia has used social media to try to sway in favor of Donald Trump.